All right, let's follow up on nothing to do with the campaign itself with none other than Harvard law professor Alan Derschowitz. Thank you, Blake. Mr. Derschowitz is also author of Trumped Up: How Criminalization of Political Differences Endangers Democracy. That's his brand new book, and it's good to have you here, Professor. So what do you say when the president says and the White House is saying, look, this has nothing to do with the campaign? Are they right?
100%. It has nothing to do with the campaign, but it has everything to do with Mueller's attempt to go after Donald Trump. They would go after him for jaywalking if they could. They just want to get him in the system so that they have leverage, so that he becomes the first domino. The message that this sends to people like Manafort and Gates is, join our team. You want to get out of jail card free? You have to give us stuff on Trump. You have to give us stuff on people close to Trump, and then you get to walk. So, of course, it has nothing to do with the campaign, but it has everything to do with the attempt by Mueller to find the final domino who's sitting in the Oval Office.
You know, I was doing a lot of reading over the weekend, and one thing I came across was a quote from 1940. Attorney General Jackson said, "Therein is the most dangerous power of the prosecutor, that he will pick people that he thinks he should get rather than pick cases that need to be prosecuted." In this particular situation, as we look at Robert Mueller and the aggressiveness of him and his team, are they trying to solve for an answer? Essentially, they know that they want to get someone, ideally the president, on something, and they're going to do everything they can to make the dominoes
And that's the
fall.
great danger of a special prosecutor. He is given a job, and he's given a lot of money, and he has to show that he has used the money well, and he has to come up ultimately with something. And that's why I don't approve of, Justice Scalia didn't approve of, many people don't approve of special prosecutors and special counsel, because they have a target, and they try to get the target. They'll do anything ethically and legally to get the target, and one way they do it is to go after people that have nothing to do with the events at issue, get them on some technical issue, on some financial issue, and then squeeze and get them to sing. The problem is,
I mean, this has nothing to do with the campaign, right?
No.
I mean, you're talking about allegations from years ago.
But it puts pressure, not only to sing, but to compose, to make up stories.
dear.
Witnesses often will make up stories in order to get out from under these kinds of charges. Look, they seem to have Manafort dead to rights. I'm sure they have them on paper, documentation, wires that were sent. And they're saying to him, you have no way out of this except to give us information about other people, other dominoes. You know,
And it
a lot
happens,
of
by the
people
way.
like this. Democrats like this when it's being used against Trump. But civil libertarians hate this kind of thing when it's used against other people. And as a civil libertarian, I have to be concerned about any technique that's used by prosecutors that could result in unfair prosecutions.
Andrew Weissman, he is the lead attorney for Mueller, and he doesn't have exactly, shall we say, the best history. He went after Arthur Anderson, effectively shut down the firm. 85,000 people lost their jobs, and you can imagine the economic ripple effect of that, only to have the Supreme Court overturn the case, unanimously overturn the case. Yet it didn't do any of those 85,000 people that had lost their jobs any darn good at all, because Andrew Weissman had put the company out of business.
Look,
and this isn't the only time. He's got a history of these.
I had a case against Andrew Weissman. I have to tell you, he is one tough lawyer. Very, very aggressive, very tough. In the experiences I had with him, he was not unfair, but very aggressive. He plays the game the way prosecutors play it. And it's called the domino theory of prosecution. You go first to somebody who's very vulnerable. You get him. He's the first domino. He gets to turn on somebody else who's the second domino, the third domino. Ultimately, your goal is to get the big domino in the Oval Office. I don't think there's evidence that President Trump has committed any crimes, but they're certainly not going to let go until they have gotten to everybody close to the president. That's the danger of this country.
This Andrew Weissman as well, he sent 5 executives from Merrill Lynch to jail for roughly a year until their cases were overturned. It disrupted their families, their careers, sent them to jail, and only had that one overturned as well.
But he's also had successful prosecutions. You know, he is a typical aggressive, tough prosecutor. And when he's prosecuting your enemies, you love him. When he's prosecuting your friends, you tend to point out all the problems. As a civil libertarian...
Well, you don't care. You have no friends and enemies. You're just saying, I want to stand for what's right here, and this is getting out of hand. Let me ask you about this. We are just getting word that both Manafort and Gates are pleading not guilty to these charges. Surprised? Not surprised?
No, I think they're in a negotiating posture. You don't immediately plead guilty. That eliminates your negotiating position. You send your lawyer in, you try to make a deal. The other person whose indictment was just revealed today, he's already pleaded guilty. So that means he's probably already made some kind of a deal. Now, when it comes to Manafort and Gates, they have 2 options. They have 3 options. One, to go to trial and probably get convicted and go to jail. Their lawyers don't want to pursue that option. Second option is to make a deal with the prosecutor. Third option is to try to persuade the president to pardon them, which the president has a complete constitutional power to do. But politically, it would be very, very costly. So we're seeing a 3-dimensional chess game being played now.
Unbelievable. Well, great job on the book. Trumped Up. Everybody should check it out. Alan Derschowitz, thank you so much. As always, good to see you, Professor.
My pleasure.